Picture this. You and your significant other are having a baby. You are absolutely overjoyed by this prospect, thinking of all the possibilities for how your child will leave its mark on the world. Suddenly, your significant other informs you that they want the child to become a doctor, and tells you the baby should be genetically modified to focus on that. You think to yourself, how odd. My baby would be expected to become a doctor or something similar if I did this, but they would be great at their job if they followed through. Do you decide to modify the baby to be a doctor, or do you leave their genes open-ended? If you were to modify the baby to be a doctor, how would this affect job prospects in that field for people who aren't modified? Also, how would this affect job prospects for the baby itself? These questions will be answered today as we navigate the subject of if children should have their destiny predetermined with the help of genetic editing. Cool intro. Before we begin unraveling the answer to this question, we're going to need to think about a couple of things. For starters, expecting children to take on specific tasks is no new topic. Throughout history, children of royal families have been expected to inherit the responsibilities of ruling, and even today there are children expected to be successful without the help of genetic editing. So if it already happens, why are we discussing the ethics of predetermination with genetically engineered babies specifically? Well, the thing is, genetic engineering, also known as gene splicing or gene editing, would open a whole new world of possibilities for how humans can be fit for certain activities. Want your baby in a job that smells bad? Engineer them without a sense of smell. Want your baby in a job that requires listening for subtle cues? Engineer them with a heightened sense of hearing. Want your baby in a job that has a lot of calculating? Engineer them to be intelligent. The list goes on for various job requirements, but the question is the same. Is it ethical to do this, to almost guarantee your child will have one path, even if it may bar other opportunities from them? For example, let's say the child from earlier, with no sense of smell, wants to work at a scent factory. It was their biggest dream ever since they were little, hearing about all the different ways to make things smell. Little Johnny will probably struggle finding meaningful work at a scent factory because he has no sense of scenting. Another example, a child, little Ashy, is engineered to remain small forever for tight-spaced jobs. Ashley wants to be an athlete when they grow up, but they are aware that they'll have more trouble than the children who were engineered to be athletes because of their small frame. They also know that their parents made the conscious choice to make them disadvantaged this way because their parents wanted a cave diver. See the problem here? The problem is not that these children would be raised for specific purposes. That's nothing new. It's that if these children wanted to do something other than the act they were destined for, they would have lower chances of succeeding compared to those who were made to do it. And it wouldn't be because they got unlucky. No, it would be because they were told what to do from the very moment they were conceived. Seems a bit unfair, doesn't it? At least in today's age, if someone's unfit for their dream job, it's because they lost the big ol' life lottery. Not their parents' choice, and not their choice, just pure luck. So, answering the question of if it's ethical to predetermine your offspring's future, I'd wager a guess that the answer is probably more complex than it seems at first glance. Once you examine the problem and weigh the possibilities, it begins looking like it's not a viable option to genetically engineer your child for specific tasks if you have their well-being in mind, regardless of what kind of future you want for them. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll want to be a professional clown, so you shouldn't go out of your way to give them an acrobat's sense of balance. But is the answer really as simple as saying, to gene or not to gene? I mean, if you broaden your idea of what being genetically edited for a specific task even means, you might have an easier time finding a potential middle ground in which a child can be engineered for a task while still retaining a potential for the application of their skills. Let's return back to the first comparison we made. For a baby to be a doctor, what skills are required? If the baby wants to be a general doctor, they may only need to be highly intelligent to find their career. Of course, for the baby to be more specialized, it would require further editing to be more efficient than people who aren't. But in the general sense, a high intelligence rating is applicable to just about anything. So would it really be that unethical to genetically engineer your baby if the trait you're changing doesn't affect its life possibilities? The question falls ultimately on the idea of what external factors are affected by this form of editing. Would this job-focused concept of conception cause an imbalance in opportunity in the population? Would the edited children have trouble with finding work? Would unedited children have trouble finding work because of these edited children? If we use our past as an indicator of the future, the answer actually leans towards not being a negative factor for the populace. For instance, without the use of genetic editing, we in the US have laws to protect against discrimination towards people who are not genetically fit for the job in which they work. As a community, we have workplace protections for people that might be considered suboptimal through services like the EEOC and Americans with Disabilities Act. However, the future is never certain, and who knows? We may revoke those opportunities soon enough for whatever reason. But to give a final, encompassing answer to the question of if it is ethical to genetically engineer your babies for specific jobs, the answer is honestly that it depends on the way that it's carried out. If a child loses opportunities in exchange for something you as a parent want, it's nothing short of selfish. But if there can be a future where people can live alongside each other without workplace discrimination due to biological hardwiring, it would be incredibly reasonable to the extent where nothing is being taken away. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you're able to give the gift of efficiency without forcing those less fortunate to be left behind, that would be one of the best cases where it is ethical to genetically engineer your children for specific tasks, if not the only. But that's basically it. That's the end. Thank you, guys.